Ethan Graves gritted his teeth as his fighter spun out of control. Smoke filled the cockpit and the warning lights flashed red. The alien planet below burned in streaks of orange and black. His hands moved over the controls, trying to steady the descent. Metal screeched and sparks flew. He slammed the final lever and the ship crashed into the rocky surface with a deafening impact. Ethan crawled out, coughing and tasting blood. Around him, the ground was jagged and blackened. Fires burned in the distance. He scanned the horizon, his heart racing. Ships were burning, and human troops were scattered. The enemy had come too fast, too strong. He pulled a small pack from the wreck, checking for supplies. Water, rations, medkits, enough to survive for a day. Then he heard the faint sound of movement, soft and irregular. He froze. It was not human. It was smaller, delicate, helpless. Following the sound, he moved carefully over broken metal and scorched rocks. He reached a small cave carved into the side of a cliff. Inside, he saw them. Small, dragon-like creatures, trembling and weak. Their scales shimmered faintly in the dim light. Their eyes looked at him, wide and uncertain. Ethan's stomach tightened. He knew what they were, hatchlings of Varaxor, the alien dragon that had killed thousands of humans. The creature was hated across the galaxy, feared by every fleet, and now these babies were alone, starving, afraid. His mind raced. Leaving them meant certain death. Saving them could mean his own. He thought of the crew he had lost, of the children and colonies Varaxor had destroyed. Every instinct screamed that helping them was madness. He crouched and offered some rations. The hatchling sniffed, then cautiously ate. One pressed against his hand, nuzzling it. A strange warmth spread through Ethan. He had expected fear or anger, but not this, not connection. Suddenly, a low roar shook the ground. Dust fell from the cave ceiling. Ethan froze. His heart raced. The roar grew louder, deeper, filled with a power that made his chest ache. Varaxor was coming. He looked at the hatchlings. Their eyes widened in panic. Ethan's hands shook as he grabbed them, lifting them into his arms. Their tiny bodies wriggled, clinging to him. He ran from the cave, ignoring his scraped hands and burning lungs. Behind him, the ground trembled with heavy steps. The roar followed, closer and more terrifying. He reached the edge of a ravine and saw the alien dragon looming in the distance. Its scales were dark, reflective, and its eyes burned with recognition. It sniffed the air, tracking him. Ethan dove behind a jagged boulder, the hatchlings pressed to his chest. The dragon circled, scanning, searching. Ethan felt fear clawing at him, but he pushed it down. He had to move, had to survive, had to protect them. Every instinct in him screamed to run, yet he held the hatchlings tighter, feeling their tiny hearts pounding against his own. The alien dragon let out a scream that shook the ground. Ethan flinched. Dust and stones fell around him. He peeked over the boulder. Varaxor's massive form moved with terrifying grace. It paused, sniffed the air again, and then vanished behind a cliff. Silence fell, but it was not relief. It was waiting. Ethan's chest heaved. Sweat burned his eyes. He looked down at the hatchlings. Their eyes seemed to shine with a strange intelligence. They had survived this far. With him, maybe they could survive more. Then one of them nuzzled his neck and hissed softly. The sound was almost like a word, almost like they recognized him. Ethan froze, realizing something impossible. They had not just clung to him. They had chosen him. They were calling him Father. He swallowed hard. The wind blew ash across his face. Behind the cliffs, the deep rumble of Varaxor's steps began again. Ethan knew he had no time. He had saved them, but the real danger was only beginning. Ethan pressed his back against the jagged cliff. His breathing was loud in his helmet, mixing with the distant rumble of Varaxor's steps. The hatchlings in his arms were restless. Their small claws tapped against his chest, tiny wings fluttering. He whispered to them, trying to keep them calm. He could not stay here. Vraxor would return. He scanned the rocky terrain, spotting a narrow path that led down to a canyon. It was dangerous, but it offered cover. He adjusted his grip and began to move, keeping low. The ground shook beneath his boots. Rocks fell from the cliffs above. He sprinted, his legs burning, dodging debris and keeping the hatchlings safe. One of them hissed, and Ethan flinched. He realized it was warning him. Their senses were sharper than his own. He followed their movements, letting them guide him. They reached the canyon floor. Shadows stretched across jagged rocks. Ethan crouched behind a boulder, listening. Vraxor's roar echoed from above, followed by the sound of massive claws scraping stone. The dragon was searching, relentless and intelligent. Ethan's heart pounded. He had to think fast. His fighter's wreck was nearby, but it was damaged. He needed a way off this planet. He spotted a small maintenance outpost down the canyon. It was abandoned, but it might have a shuttle. He whispered to the hatchlings, moving carefully toward it. The hatchlings shifted in his arms, small scales scraping against his armor. He set them down behind him as he checked the outpost's entrance. Metal doors hung open, sparks flickering from broken panels. He slipped inside, scanning the dim interior. Control panels were half burned, but some lights flickered. He accessed a navigation terminal. One shuttle was functional, hidden in a nearby bay. It could carry him and the hatchlings, but it would not withstand a direct attack from Vraxor. Ethan's mind raced. He needed a distraction. He pulled metal debris and set it along the canyon path. When the dragon followed, the falling rocks could slow it. Ethan gathered the hatchlings and ran. The shuttle bay was a few minutes away, but it felt like hours. Behind him, the ground trembled again. Vraxor appeared, massive and terrifying. Its eyes locked onto Ethan. It sniffed the air, claws scraping rocks, wings stirring dust and fire. Ethan sprinted, shouting commands at the hatchlings to stay low. They obeyed, diving behind his shoulders and clinging tight. He reached the shuttle, forcing open the hatch. He set the hatchlings inside and followed, slamming the door. Engines roared to life. Metal groaned under pressure. He aimed at the canyon exit, praying the path would hold. The shuttle lifted just as rocks began to fall. Ethan maneuvered with sharp turns, dodging falling debris. Vraxor screamed, a sound of rage and frustration. Its shadow passed over the shuttle, wings casting darkness, then it vanished behind the canyon walls. For a moment there was silence. Inside, the hatchlings chirped softly. Ethan glanced at them. Their small eyes studied him. He felt the impossible weight of responsibility. They were not just creatures. They were alive. They trusted him. Somehow, against all reason, they had chosen him. Ethan tried to plot a course. The planet's atmosphere was thin and chaotic, and enemy fleets had been spotted nearby. He had no time to rest. As he adjusted the controls, a warning light flashed. A distress signal had activated, originating from the hatchling's biology. Someone, or something, was tracking them. Ethan froze, his jaw tight. He looked at the hatchlings. They chirped again, hissing softly. One of them curled around his arm, almost protective. The signal was faint but persistent. It would not go unnoticed. The shuttle rose above the burning planet. Ethan gritted his teeth. He had saved them, but the hunt was far from over. Somewhere in space, Vraxor and a galaxy of enemies would now be moving toward them. He clenched his fists, feeling both fear and determination. They were his responsibility, and he would not fail. Then the hatchlings hissed in unison. Their eyes glowed faintly. Ethan realized they were not just following him. They were communicating, and the message was clear. They were ready to fight with him. The bond had grown stronger. The impossible was happening. The shuttle jumped into warp, leaving the planet behind. Ethan looked at the small creatures and whispered more to himself than anyone else that he would protect them no matter the cost. But far ahead, in the dark of space, a new shadow moved. Something faster than any fleet. Something alive. And it was coming straight for them. The shuttle shuddered as it exited warp. Ethan pressed his hands against the control panel. His eyes scanned the stars for any sign of pursuit. The hatchlings shifted in their container, their small bodies alert. He whispered reassurances, but he could feel their tension. They knew something was coming. He set the shuttle on a course toward an abandoned space station orbiting a dead star. It was risky, but it offered shelter. He remembered seeing reports about the station being used for weapons storage and alien research. If he could find resources there, they could survive longer and plan their next move. The station was massive and dark. Its metal surface was scorched and dented from old battles. Ethan docked carefully, the hatchlings squirming with each bump. He unstrapped from the pilot chair and carried them into the station, moving through narrow corridors filled with shadows and flickering lights. The smell of burnt circuits and old machinery filled the air. Ethan checked the terminal for maps and power systems. Some sections were offline, but he found a room that could serve as a safe area. He secured the doors and laid down protective barriers. The hatchlings huddled together, eyes wide and alert. He felt a strange pride. They were surviving because of him. Suddenly, movement caught his eye. Figures in armored suits appeared in the corridor outside. Bounty hunters. They had tracked the shuttle. Ethan's heart jumped. He grabbed a metal pipe, positioning himself between the hatchlings and the intruders. Shots rang out, sparks flying as they hit walls and metal beams. He dodged and countered, swinging with precision born of desperation. The hatchlings hissed and moved toward the attackers instinctively. Tiny claws slashed, small teeth snapped, and for the first time, Ethan saw them fight. They were not helpless. He fought beside them, using every ounce of strength, dodging lasers and debris. The corridor shook from explosions and gunfire. Ethan pressed a button on the terminal, activating a section of the station's old defense system. Automated turrets spun, firing at the intruders. The bounty hunters screamed and fell, giving Ethan a moment to catch his breath. The hatchlings chirped softly, almost as if acknowledging the temporary victory. He looked at them, eyes meeting theirs. A strange connection passed between them. He was no longer just their protector. He was their father in every sense that mattered. The victory was short-lived. A loud alarm rang through the station. Ethan's stomach tightened. The hatchlings shivered. He checked the monitors. The station's sensors had picked up a massive incoming fleet. They were not alone. Someone or something far more dangerous was approaching. It was faster, bigger, and relentless. Ethan had no time to prepare. He grabbed the hatchlings and moved toward a maintenance bay where a small shuttle was stored. The hatchlings struggled, but he held them tight. He activated the shuttle and fought the systems back to life. Engines roared, the metal shaking as he lifted off. Behind him, the station's outer walls began to crack and explode. As the shuttle cleared the station, Ethan scanned the sensors. The approaching fleet was vast, ships of multiple sizes and unknown technology. Their formation was precise. They were hunting, and they would not stop. His mind raced. Every plan he had was suddenly useless. He had no allies, no reinforcements, just him and the hatchlings against impossible odds. Ethan gritted his teeth and whispered to the hatchlings. They chirped back softly, hissing in unison. Their small eyes glowed faintly. He realized they were aware of the danger and somehow preparing to defend themselves. The bond between them had grown stronger. They would fight alongside him no matter what. The fleet jumped into view. Ethan felt the weight of their presence like a physical force. He took a deep breath, clutching the hatchlings. He knew this was only the beginning. The war had just reached him. And now, a figure appeared on the sensors, moving faster than the fleet. Something alive. Something watching. Ethan's heart stopped. The hatchlings hissed, pressing against him. They recognized it too. Whatever it was coming straight for them. The shuttle shuddered as Ethan pushed it through the asteroid field. Debris whipped past the cockpit, metal scraping against the hull. He held the hatchlings close, their small bodies tense but quiet. Every moment counted. The fleet behind him was gaining. Sensors flashed warnings. Small fighters had broken away from the main fleet and were intercepting him. Ethan twisted the shuttle, dodging blasts, weaving through narrow gaps. The hatchlings chirped, almost in rhythm with the alarms. They had learned to react, to anticipate. Ethan felt a surge of pride and fear. They were alive because of him, and now they were learning to survive. He set a course for a planet rumored to be a human outpost in the outer sectors. It was uncharted, dangerous, but it might offer supplies and shelter. The hatchlings shifted in their containment pods, their glowing eyes tracking every movement. Ethan whispered encouragement, though he could hear the fear in his own voice. Halfway through the jump, a warning blared. Kieran Hale appeared on the shuttle's sensors, moving fast and aggressive. Ethan's stomach dropped. He had thought Hale was gone. He had trusted him once, but Hale's greed and ruthlessness were known across sectors. He wanted the hatchlings. He would not stop. Ethan prepared for evasive maneuvers. The hatchlings stirred, hissing in unison. Ethan realized they understood the threat. Their instincts were sharper than any humans. They were small, but they were dangerous. He activated the shuttle's weapons, targeting Hale's ship. Explosions flared in the void as lasers hit metal. Ethan twisted the shuttle, narrowly avoiding blasts that would have shredded him and the hatchlings. A massive shadow appeared on the sensors. Vraxor. The dragon had followed them through space, faster and deadlier than any human fleet. Ethan's heart pounded. He knew that Vraxor would not attack recklessly. It was testing him, waiting for a sign of weakness. He held the hatchlings closer. Their small claws pressed against him, and for the first time, he felt their trust fully. They were willing to fight alongside him. The battle escalated. Hale's ships clashed with Vraxor in space, and Ethan weaved through the chaos. He used every trick, every tactic to survive. The hatchlings began to emit a soft glow, their small bodies resonating with energy. Ethan realized they were adapting, preparing. Their bond with him was not just emotional, it was tactical. He pushed the shuttle through a dense asteroid belt, hoping to lose Hale. Vraxor followed, moving with uncanny precision. The hatchlings hissed and flapped, small wings stirring gusts in the cockpit. Ethan felt their energy, strange and powerful, guiding him. They were not just passengers, they were partners in this fight. Suddenly, Hale's ship breached the shuttle's shields. Ethan spun, firing weapons trying to hold them back. The hatchlings hissed louder, small claws extending. Sparks flew. One of them lunged toward the controls, accidentally pressing a panel. Ethan froze. The shuttle's autopilot activated, pushing them out of the immediate path of Hale's attack. The hatchlings had done it. Ethan's jaw tightened. They were growing stronger, faster, smarter. But time was running out. Vraxor loomed closer, its eyes fixed on him. Hale's ships regrouped and the outer sectors were crawling with enemies. Ethan had no choice. He had to make a desperate jump to the uncharted planet. The hatchlings pressed against him, almost urging him forward. The shuttle roared as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Ethan's fingers burned from gripping the controls. He pushed the engines to the limit. Heat and metal screamed around them. Behind, Hale's ships fired relentlessly. And above, the shadow of Vraxor blocked the sky, wings spreading wide. Ethan took a deep breath, clutching the hatchlings. They were alive. They were with him, and somehow they trusted him. The planet below was rocky and unstable, but it was their only chance. He dove toward it. The shuttle crashed through clouds, metal screeching. Ethan held tight. The hatchlings hissed in unison, glowing bright. And then the shuttle slammed into the surface. Dust and debris filled the air. Ethan opened his eyes. The planet was alive with danger, but so were they. And for the first time he realized the fight was far from over, and the true war was just beginning. The planet's surface shook as Ethan climbed from the wrecked shuttle. Rocks tumbled around him. Dust stung his eyes. The hatchlings scuttled beside him, their small bodies alert and tense. Their eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the dim light of the planet's dying sun. Ethan's chest burned with exhaustion and fear, but he pushed forward. Above, Vraxor circled, wings slicing through the thick clouds, its eyes fixed on Ethan and the hatchlings. Ethan's mind raced. He had no weapon strong enough to kill it. All he had was strategy, courage, and the bond with the hatchlings. He clenched his fists, feeling their small claws press against his arms. They were ready. The hatchlings hissed and flared small bursts of heat and light. Ethan realized they were coordinating, reacting to Vraxor's movements. Together, they had become more than the sum of their parts. He took a deep breath and moved into the open, forcing the dragon to focus on him. He had one chance to protect them. Vraxor dove. Ethan rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a massive claw swipe. The ground exploded where it hit. Rocks flew in every direction. The hatchlings leaped from his arms, gliding on small wings, attacking the dragon's legs and tail. Vraxor roared in surprise and pain, thrashing violently. Ethan ran, drawing Vraxor toward the canyon where the planet's terrain could limit the dragon's movements. The hatchlings flanked him, small glowing bodies darting like sparks. Ethan shouted commands almost instinctively, guiding them. They responded instantly, moving as one. He felt the impossible weight of trust and responsibility. These creatures had chosen him as their father, and now they fought with him. Vraxor lunged again, its massive jaws snapping inches from Ethan's face. He dove behind a rock, the force of the attack shaking the ground. The hatchlings hissed, biting and scratching. Ethan scrambled to the top of a ridge. He spotted a narrow passage that could trap Vraxor, forcing it to use its wings in the confined space. He nodded to the hatchlings. They understood. They led the dragon into the canyon. Rocks and metal debris tumbled as Vraxor struggled. Ethan used every trick, every movement, guiding it toward the narrow exit. The hatchlings attacked relentlessly, coordinating in bursts of heat and light. Vraxor roared, thrashing, but its size became a disadvantage. Finally, with one coordinated move, the hatchlings drove Vraxor into the canyon walls. The dragon roared, trapped but alive. It stared at Ethan, its eyes full of recognition and a strange respect. Ethan's chest heaved, sweat and blood covering him. He had survived. The hatchlings gathered around, pressing against his legs, chirping and hissing softly. For a moment, the world was silent except for the labored breathing of man and creatures. Ethan looked down at them, overwhelmed with exhaustion and emotion. They were alive, and he had protected them. They had trusted him and fought alongside him. He was no longer just a human in this galaxy. He was their father, their leader, their protector. Then, a flicker on the horizon caught his eye. Ethan froze. A fleet, larger than anything he had seen, approached. Ships moved with deadly precision, engines blazing. They were not human. Not Vraxor. Something else, something more dangerous. His chest tightened. The hatchlings hissed, pressing closer. The battle was not over. It was only escalating. Ethan clenched his fists, looking at the glowing eyes of the hatchlings. They were ready. He was ready. Together, they had survived impossible odds. But the war was far from over, and the galaxy had just revealed its next threat. Ethan whispered to them, steadying his voice despite the fear, promising silently that no matter what came next, they would face it together.